Alright, so you're with okay. Views and view groups. Enjoy the viewing. Here's the layout I prepared earlier. Okay. We've seen how to arrange GUI components using a linear layout, but so far we've only scratched the surface. In this chapter, we'll look a little deeper and show you how linear layout really works. We'll introduce you to the frame layout, a simple layout used to stack views, and we'll also take a tour of the main GUI components and how you use them. By the end of the chapter, you'll see that even though they all look a little different, all layouts and GUI components have more in common than you think. Okay. Your user interface is made up of layouts and GUI components. As you already know, a layout defines what a screen looks like, and you define it using XML. Layouts usually contain GUI components such as buttons and text fields. Your user interacts with these to make your app do something. All the all the apps you've seen in the book so far have used linear layouts where GUI components are arranged in a single column or row. In order to make the most out of them, however, we need to spend a bit of time looking at how they work and how to use them effectively. In this chapter, we're going to take a closer look at linear layouts, introduce you to their close relatives, the frame layout, and show you other GUI components you can use to make your app more interactive. So linear layout displays views in a single row or column. As you already know, a linear layout displays its views next to each other, either vertically or horizontally. If it's vertically, the views are displayed in a single column. If it's horizontally, the views are displayed in a single row. Okay, then we have you define a linear layout using linear layout element like this. So we have linear layout. The layout width and layout height specify which size you want the layout to be. The orientation specifies whether you want to display views vertically or horizontally. There may be other attributes too. Okay. The XML NS Android attribute is used to specify the Android namespace. Okay. And you must always set it to http schemas.android.com/apk android. Okay. Namespace. Specify Android namespace. Okay. You must set the layout's width and height. The Android layout and Android height attributes specify how wide and how high you want the layout to be. These attributes are mandatory for all types of layout and view. You can set Android layout width and Android layout height to wrap content, match parent, or a specific size such as 8 dp, that's 8 density independent pixels. Wrap content, okay, so density independent pixels. Some devices some devices create very sharp images by using very tiny pixels. Other devices are cheaper to produce because they have fewer larger pixels. You use density independent pixels to avoid creating interfaces that are overly small on some devices and overly large on others. A measurement in density independent pixel is roughly the same across all devices. That is great. Okay. Okay. Wrap content means that you want the layout to be just big enough to hold all of the views inside it. And match parent means you want the layout to be as big as its parent, in this case as big as the device screen minus any padding. There's more about padding in a couple of pages. You will usually set the layout width and height to match parent. You may sometimes see Android layout width and Android layout height set to fill parent. Fill parent was used in all older versions of Android and it is now replaced by match parent. Okay, fill parent is deprecated. Orientation is vertical or horizontal. You specify the direction in which you wish to arrange views using the Android uh, orientation attribute. As you've seen in early chapters, you arrange views vertically using vertical. This displays the views in a single column. Okay. You arrange views horizontally using a single row here. Okay. When the orientation is horizontal, views are displayed from left to right by default. This is great for languages that are read from left to right. But what if the user has the language on their device to one that's right to left? Yeah, what's then? Okay, for apps where the minimum SDK is at least 17, you can get views to rearrange themselves depending on the language setting on the device. If user's language is read from right to left, you can get the views to arrange themselves starting from the right. Okay. To do this, you declare that your app supports languages that are read from right to left in your Android manifest XML. Okay, support right to left. Okay. Android Studio may add this line of code for you. It must go inside the application tag. Okay. Means supports right to left. Okay. Padding adds spaces. If you want there to be a bit of space around the edges of the layout, you can set padding attributes. These attributes tell Android how much padding you want between each of the layout's sides and its parents. Here's how you would tell Android you want to add padding of 16 dp to all edges of the layout. Okay. If you want to add different amounts of padding to different edges, you can specify that individually. Here's how you would add 16 dp and 32 dp to the top of the layout and 16 to the other edges. Okay, padding bottom, padding left, padding right. Okay, that's what's up. Okay, if your app supports right to left languages, you can use padding start, padding end to add padding to the start and end of the layout instead of left and right edges. Okay. Android padding start adds padding to the start of the edge of the layout. The start edge is on the left for languages that are read from left to right, and right for languages that are read from right to left. Android padding and adds padding to the end edge of the layout. The end edge is on the right for languages that are read from left to right, and then similar. Okay, you can only that's okay. You can only use start and end properties with API 17 or above. If you want your app to work on older versions of Android, you must use the left and right properties instead. Add a dimension resource file for consistent padding across layouts. In the example on the previous page, we hard-coded the padding and set it to 16 dp. An alternative approach is to specify the padding in a dimension resource file instead. Doing so makes it easier to maintain the padding dimensions for all the layouts in your app. Okay. We have to use a dimension resource file. You first need to add one to your project. To do this, first select the app source main best values folder in the studio and go to the file menu and choose new value resource file. Okay, when prompted, enter a file name of dimes and click on the OK button. This creates a new resource file called okay. Alright, so once you've created the dimensions resource file, you add dimensions to it using the diamond element. Okay, as an example, here's how you would add dimensions for the horizontal and vertical margins. Okay, so activity horizontal margin, activity vertical margin. Okay. You use the dimensions you create by setting the padding attributes in a layout file to the name of the dimension resource like this. Okay. Okay. Okay, the padding left and padding right attributes are set to @diamond activity horizontal margin, and padding top and padding bottom attributes are vertical margin. Okay. With that kind of setup at runtime, Android looks up the values of the attributes in the dimension resource file and applies the values it find there. Alright, so a linear layout displays views in the order. A linear layout displays views in the order they appear in the layout XML. When you define a linear layout, you add views to the layout in the order in which you want them to appear. Okay. So if you want a text view to appear above a button in a linear layout, you must define the text view first. If you define the text view above the button in the XML, the text view will appear above the button. Okay. You specify the width and height of any views using Android layout width and Android layout height. The code Android layout width equals wrap content means that you want the view just to be wide enough for its content to fit inside it. For example, the text displayed on a button or in a text view. The code with match parent means that you want the view to be as wide as the parent layout. If you need to refer a view elsewhere in your code, you need to give it an ID. As an example, you'd give the text view an ID of text view using the code this. @ plus ID. Okay. Layout are mandatory attributes for all views, no matter which layout you use. They can take the values wrap content and match parent on specific dimension value or a specific dimension value such as 16 dp. Use margins to add use margins to add distance between views. Okay. When you position a view using a linear layout, when you position a view, when you position a view using a linear layout, the layout doesn't leave much of a gap between views. You can increase the size of gap. You can increase the size of the gap by adding one or more margins to the view. As an example, suppose you want to put one view below another but add 48 dp of extra space between the two. To do that, you'd add a margin 48 dp to the top of the bottom view. Okay, so we go margin top. Okay. Adding a margin to the top of the bottom button adds extra space between the two views. Okay. Here's a list of the margins you can use to give your views extra space. Add the attributes to the view and sets its value to the size of the margin you want. Layout margin top, layout margin bottom, margin left, margin start, margin right, margin end, and layout margin. Okay, overall. Let's change up a basic linear layout. Okay. At first glance, a linear layout can seem basic and inflexible. After all it does is arrange views in a particular order. To give you more flexibility, you can tweak your layout's appearance using some more of its attributes. To show you how this works, we're going to transform a basic linear layout. Okay. The layout is composed of two editable text fields and a button. To start this, these text fields are displayed vertically on the screen like this. Each view takes up the least possible amount of vertical space. We're going to change the layout so that the button is displayed in the end corner of the layout. Oh, and one of the editable text fields take up the remaining space. That should be easy. The message editable text field has been given a lot of space. The send button appears at the bottom right of the screen for languages that are read from left to right. Okay. So here's a starting point for the linear layout. The linear layout contains two editable text elements. Yeah. This is the Android namespace, tools, and then context. Okay. The linear layout contains two editable text fields and a button. The button is labeled send, and the editable text field contain hint text values of to and message. Okay. Hint text is an editable text field. Hint text is an editable text field. Hint text in an editable text field is text that's displayed when the field is empty. It's used to give users a hint as to what sort of text they should enter. You define hint text using So we define this, then we have an editable text string 2. Okay, Android hint. Then we have the editable text fields are as wide as the parent layout. The Android hint displays a hint to the user as to what they should type in the editable text field. Okay, so we go edit text. The values of these strings are defined in the strings.xml as usual. The text values displayed here come from string resources in the strings.xml file. Okay. All these views take up as much vertical space in the layout as the need for the content. So how do we make message field taller? Okay. So let me start with new project, empty views activities. We are going to make it views and view groups. Yeah, select folder, and this is, what is this? Layout examples. Okay, so layout example. The location. Okay, finish. So this should go away. Okay, so okay, so we go with linear layout. Then we provide layout width, layout height, some padding, provide an orientation. So vertical, so it will arrange in one column. Right. Then tools context. Okay. So to which Java file does this uh, attach to? I think. Right. Alright. Show me project. Let's get rid of this. Okay, hello world. We'll go with linear layout. Okay, so we'll start with linear layout. Then we provide XML, XML namespace. This is Android equals HTTP schemas dot android dot com slash apk slash res slash android. Okay. Isn't that how you define it? No? Okay. So yeah, XML and S, and I've done it the right way. Then we go with XML and S tools. XML and S tools. Okay, so you find tools on HTTP. Schemas dot android.com/tools, and I think we can provide a layout with let's say match parent, and then in Android layout height, which is match parent, and then I can provide some padding, Android padding overall 16 dp. Then we can provide an orientation, which is vertical, and okay, then we need to provide tools context. This is main activity dot java. Is it a string? Yeah, okay, it's a string. Don't main activity, and that is all. Now within we have two edit text fields. So first we can decide Android layout. Okay, so I can give it an ID of @ plus ID slash. Okay, so first, okay, so we define layout width and height. Alright, okay, so we'll define those first. So we have Android layout width is match parent, and then Android layout height is wrap content, and then we can provide it an ID which is okay, so we don't provide it an ID, but we do provide it a hint, which is @string slash I think 2. I will create that, don't worry. Then we get then we first why Android layout height is wrap content, and Android layout width is match parent, and then we can provide it an hint. So let string message. Right, okay, so I should create this value strings. Okay. We create another string, name is 2, and we go 2. And we create another string, name is message, and we can run message. Alright, so now that this is resolved, we create a button layout. Width is match parent, and Android layout height is wrap content, and we set a text to send. Okay, so we have, okay, so we create a string resource, oh, send, okay, so name equals send, then we set Android text to send. Okay, now if I take a look, yeah, there we go. And main activity, I'll keep it simple. We only need this. We use compact. I just need to import Android dot view dot. Okay, how do I include? No, I just want activity. Android dot app dot activity. Okay, Android dot app dot activity. Okay, there we go. So this is it. Like, all these views take up as much. Okay, so I'll run it real quick. Let's fire up our virtual device. It's time half an hour. Okay. Oh, leave it, my guy. Leave it. Bruh. Okay. Finally leaves it. This is very unresponsive. Okay. Alright, so let's try this. Alright. Alright, so let's see how will it look. I don't know, man. Okay, so make a view stretch by adding weight. Okay, all of these views in a basic layout take up just as much vertical space as the need for their content. But what we actually want is to make the message text field stretch to take up vertical space in the layout. That's not being used by other views. Yes, right. Okay. So make the text field we want to make the text field stretch vertically so that it fills any spare space in the layout. Okay. So in order to do this, we need to allocate some weight to the message text field. Allocating a weight to the view is a way of telling it to stretch to take up extra space in the layout. Okay. So we go with here assign layout. You assign weight to a view using Android layout weight number when number is some number greater than 0. Okay. When you allocate weight to a view, the layout first makes sure that each view has enough space for its content. It's still okay. When you allocate weight to a view, the layout first makes sure that each view has enough space for its content. Each button has space for its text. Each editable text field has space for its hint and so on. Once it's done that, the layout takes any extra space and divides it proportionally between the views with a weight of 1 or greater. Adding weight to one view. We need the message editable text field to take up any extra space in the layout. To do this, we'll set a layout weight and attribute to 1. As this is the only view in the layout with the weight value, this will make text fields stretch vertically to fill the remainder of the screen. Okay. This text edit and the button have no layout weight attribute set. They'll take up as much room as their content needs, but no more. Okay. For Android, so this is layout height and layout weight. Okay, so we set layout height to 0 dp. Okay, the height of the view will be determined by the linear layout based on the layout weight. Setting the layout height to 0 dp is more efficient than setting it to wrap content, as this way Android doesn't have to work out the value of wrap content. Okay. Okay. So we set it to height 0. I think this should be blue. 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 Okay. So this view is the only one with any weight. It will expand to fill the space that's not needed by any other views. Okay. So giving the message editable text field a weight of 1 means that it takes up all the extra space that's not used by other views in the layout. This is because neither of the other two views has been allocated any weight in the layout XML. Okay. So I go layout weight equals 1. Okay. So we provided a weight, edit text message, we set the height to 0 dp. Okay, so alright, I can't do this. Can I do this here? Okay, no. So does it understand these comments? Yeah, okay, it does. Okay. Setting the height to 0 dp is more efficient than setting it to wrap content, since the height will eventually be decided by the weight. So I go Android layout weight equals 1. So it should, yeah, okay. So it takes up any additional space. I think this should be wrap content. Yeah, okay. And then, okay. So by default, the message hint text appears in the middle. We'll deal with that next. Okay. Right, there's the message. Okay. With the message view has a height of has a weight of 1, as it's the only view with its weight attribute set. It expands to take up any extra vertical space in the layout, adding weight to multiple views. Okay. In this example, we only had one view with a weight attribute, but weight attribute set. But what if we had more than one? Suppose we gave the to text field a weight of 1 and the message text field the weight of 2, like this. Okay. So to figure out how much extra space each view takes up, start by adding together the layout weight attributes for each view. In our case, this is 1 plus 2 is equals 3. The amount of extra space taken up by each view will be the view's weight divided by the total weight. Okay. So the 2 view has a weight of 1. So this means it will take up 1/3 of the remaining space in the layout, and it will take up 2/3 of the space. Okay. Okay, then gravity controls the position of a view's content. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is move the hint text inside the message text field. At this moment, it's centered vertically inside the view. We need to change it so that text appears at the top of the text field. We can achieve this using the Android gravity attribute. Okay. So within, okay, so the Android gravity attribute lets you specify how you want to position the contents of a view inside the view. For example, how you want to position text inside the text field. If you want the text inside a view to appear at the top, This will do the trick. Okay, so we need to move the message hint text from the center to the top of the view. Okay, so we just provide gravity, right? So message, I want to provide gravity of top, and then we have message. There we go. Okay, so we'll add an Android gravity attribute to the message text field so that the hint text moves up to the top of the view. Displays the text inside the text field at the top of the text field. Okay, so the message hint text now appears at the top of the view. Okay, so adding the Android gravity attribute to the message text field moves the hint text to the top of the view just like we want. You'll find a list of other values you can use with the Android gravity attribute on the next page. Okay, values you can use with the Android gravity attribute. Okay, so let's run it once. Right, set content layout, set content view. Okay, nice. Okay, values you can use Android gravity attribute. Okay, Android gravity lets you say where you want the view's content to appear inside the view. Okay. So here are some of the more values you can use with the Android gravity attribute. Add the attribute to your view and set its value to one of the given values. Okay, start and end are only available in API 17. Okay, so we have top, bottom, left, right, start, end, center vertical, center horizontal, center, fill vertical, make the view's content fill, view vertically, fill horizontal, fill. Okay. You can also apply multiple gravities. You can also apply multiple gravities to the view by separating each value with a pipe. To sync a view's content to the bottom end corner, use this. Right, okay. So layout gravity controls the position of a view within a layout. Okay, layout gravity. Alright. So there's one final change we need to make to our layout. The send button correctly appears in the bottom left corner. Currently appears in the bottom left corner. We need to move it over to the end instead, the bottom right corner for left to right languages. To do this, we'll use the Android layout gravity attribute. The Android layout gravity attribute lets you specify where you want a view in a linear layout to appear in its enclosing space. You can use it to push the view to the right, for instance, or center the view horizontally. To move our button to the end, we need to add this to the button's code. Okay. We'll move the button to the end so it appears on the right for left to right languages and left for right to left. Okay. So we set Android layout gravity equals end. Wait a sec. I thought you said that gravity was used to say where you want to put the view's content, not the view itself. Linear layouts have two attributes that sound similar to one another: gravity and layout gravity. A couple of pages ago, we used Android gravity attributes to position message text inside a text view. This is because the Android gravity attribute lets you say where you want a view's content to appear. Right. The Android right. The Android layout gravity deals with placement of view itself and lets you control where view appears in the available space. Okay, so I will set the button to Android layout gravity equals end. Okay, now this is on the right. Great. Okay, so there's a list of some other values you can use with Android layout gravity attributes in the next page. More values you can use with Android layout gravity. Okay, 51. I'm almost there. Okay. Here are some of the values you can use with Android layout gravity attribute. Add the attribute to your views and set its value to one of the values below. Okay. You can apply multiple layout gravity values by separating each one with a pipe. As an example, bottom end to move a view to the bottom end of its available space. Okay, so we have top, bottom, left, right, start and end, center vertical, center horizontal, center, fill vertical, fill horizontal, and fill. Why? Okay, so great. Alright. So we have Android layout gravity lets you say where you want the views to appear in the available space. Android layout gravity with the placement of the view. Android layout gravity deals with the placement of the view itself, whereas Android gravity controls how the view's contents are displayed. Okay, so this is the full. The Android gravity is different from Android layout gravity. Android gravity relates to the Android gravity relates to the contents of the view, while Android layout gravity relates to the view itself. Okay. So linear layout summary. Here you specify linear layout. You must specify the width, height, orientation, but padding is optional. Okay, padding is optional. Views get displayed in order they are listed in the code. When you define a linear layout, you add the views in the layout in the order you wish them to appear. Stretch views using weight. By default, all views take up as much space as necessary for their content. If you want to make one or more of your views take up more space, you can use the weight attribute to make it stretch. Okay. Use gravity to specify where contents appear within a view. The Android gravity attribute lets you specify how you want to position the contents of a view. For example, you want to position text inside a text field. Okay. And they use layout gravity to specify where a view appears in its available space. The Android layout gravity attribute lets you specify where you want a view in a linear layout to appear in its parent layout. You can push a view to the end, for instance, or center the view horizontally. Okay, that's everything we've covered on linear layouts. Next, we'll take a look at frame layout. I think that's enough for today.